What's up, everybody? My name is PLD. This week
And
on
I'm
PSH.
Oh, you went there.
I did.
And this is Team Cavill. Welcome to Class Action, where we talk about only the best of villains. So sorry, Paul, we gotta boot you with your name here.
Wow.
I figured we could start the show. We could start the show amicably and then build into it.
No, we're going right into it. You know what? I'm going to do it too. We before we even talk about Class Action, I'm going to say where we are. We're on the Action Industries YouTube channel, the home of Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy. And if you watched last week, we did Mission Impossible 3 versus Mission Impossible Fallout. And you saw a certain someone have one of the worst takes in the history of film punditry. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to use it. And in case you were, I went and got backup. Let's just see what our
Interesting that you needed backup, though. Have I gotten any backup?
Well, I didn't need backup because all I did was talk about it, and then people just wanted to jump in and give their opinion.
Sure, show the clip how it just came up naturally.
It did because he asked about Class Action.
Already coming at me.
All right, let's see what our friends have to say about this. We're now going to discussing Mission Impossible Rogue Nation versus Mission Impossible Fallout. I thought it was going to be Mission Impossible 3 versus Fallout, but then Jarvie had to make that weird decision. And
Jarvie was an idiot.
He was an idiot.
A few times in my entire life that I will say that about Richard Eric Jarvie, who I adore. But he was a fool picking any of the Mission Impossibles over Mission Impossible 3.
I actually literally, I write down, we talk about it, go category by category. I write down our decisions at the end. I have the tally. I actually literally had wrote down for the villain category that Mission Impossible 3 was going to have both of our votes. And then he just shocked the world and shocked me and went with Henry Cavill over Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I
I did.
Hammer.
Did you say, I'm the captain now? And then you said Henry Cavill?
Pretty much what he did. I mean, I literally sat there and was
victory sip.
For about 5 minutes of bad airtime for me. Jarvie tried to explain himself, and I was just do you understand where I'm coming from? I said, no, I still don't. I still don't understand where you're coming from.
I would have actively taken Dougray Scott over Cavill as my number 2.
Hunt. Come out of it.
All right. So
I would have 2.
Sure, because you're just
Dougray Scott Hunt better than Cavill.
Sure. Why didn't you say that on the show though?
Because we don't do Mission Impossible 2. We didn't cover that. So
they didn't need to discuss it either. It came up.
And I still don't understand your reasoning and your explanation, since you obviously
that's fine. I really don't need you to. I feel like I made my arguments. I explained my choices. You just said PSH. Yeah. I argued my point. You just said something that you blindly believe. That's sort of I'm not going to get into blindly believing in things. That's a whole other.
Well, what do we do here on Class Action, folks? You see some of it. We argue a lot. We have a lot of hot takes sometimes, but
we usually don't argue, though.
That's actually true. We actually
that usually doesn't happen.
This is actually the first time we ever really had a drag them out fight about something, which is actually probably good. We probably find more of that. It makes for good drama, But on Class Action, we usually take option A versus option B. It could be anything. It could be movies, franchises, actors, directors. Could be anything, pretty much. I mean, put them against each other. 5 custom-made categories. And we see who is the better film at the end. And, most of the time, who's the better film at the end. A lot of times we have found that wrong choices have won, or choices we didn't think were going to win did win, just like last week.
Yeah, well, we should also emphasize that this is the final round of the Mission Impossible sort of mini tournament. So this will determine what, in our opinion, is the best Mission Impossible movie.
Kinda, sorta, because of the categories.
Yeah. But the categories, like we said, bring out stuff that we usually don't notice when we're just just deciding what is better as a whole. You got to break things down into pieces.
I mean, I wanted this to be like a wrestling. I know I'm watching Schmodown a lot recently, so I wanted this to be like wrestling, where somehow Mission Impossible 3's music comes in and it just takes it all out anyway. Somehow, I don't know how, but I'd work it in some kind of way. But I can't do that, obviously. Which another thing I can't do this week, which is kind of interesting. We're doing this tournament. We actually have a lot of movies facing each other. We did a lot of categories the same because that's what made sense. We're doing the same most of the same categories this week. We do have
Mhm.
one we switched out because we thought it would make sense to put them up against each other. At the same time, though, it also kind of kills off some of our discussion a little bit because, well, we've already had these discussions. One thing it did kill off specifically was it killed off one of our games at this point. We said that we can't do what would Ed Harris play. For the first time in our history, we can't do what would Ed Harris play. It's going to be Ed Harris-less show, which is kind of sad for me in a way, but I actually understand and get it.
Wait, did you just call me hairless?
Yes, I did. Richard Harris.
What the fuck you say to me?
Well, it's shiny. I like it. It's very shiny. You don't even need any ring lights or anything. You have your own.
I'll let you know on a little secret. I'm going bald.
Are you?
Don't tell anyone.
But we already did. We had Ed Harris categories for all these films already, so we're not going to do it again because that just wouldn't make any sense.
Because I'm sorry, but that you can say that I beat you there.
You did. You had a great one.
You, right?
Full out. I usually will fight you on some things. That was full out. I was speechless. You made me speechless twice in this whole tournament. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I didn't have anything. You did not have anything better. Yours was the best. Go search out both of the last 2 episodes. You can find Richard Eric Jarvis casting of Ed Harris. It was great. It was a great story. I wanted to see that movie. I did. So.
Kind of want to pitch that to what's the Skydance? What's the
Skydance
studio? Yeah.
Get the recorder on the phone or
gotta get Ed Harris some more work after this.
Absolutely.
Whole COVID thing, you know.
Exactly. I like that. I like that idea. So. But we also don't have a public defender this week. I reached out to a couple people and just didn't happen for whatever reason. So we don't have off the cuff.
I don't have to explain it.
You don't have to explain it. Actually,
although I gotta say I'm pretty much enjoying it now. I feel like I have it locked down.
You do have it. It's not as good before when you're stumbling over it, trying to not offend anybody.
Always fun to make jokes.
It is.
Well, always fun to joke about the Estonian, right?
That's right. I always
stumbling with his English. I played that card. I'm playing dirty this week.
I see what you're saying, and I'm not appreciating it at all. But either way, we don't have a public defender. We don't have Ed Harris, so we came up with another kind of a game we'd play a little bit. It's kind of a different game for us. I kind of like it. I kind of like the idea of it.
Yeah,
fun.
Me too.
Because Mission Impossible is a big franchise, and there shows no signs of stopping unless. God forbid Tom Cruise tries one stunt too many or something to that effect. But so that means who knows what we're going to have to see in the future. But we know what we are going to see is Tom Cruise on one side with a crew facing some kind of villain. So why don't we do that? Take a look at some of our choices. We each picked 5 choices of villains we might want to see Tom Cruise face in a future Mission Impossible sequence. Why don't you start off with your first one there?
Yeah, it's not off the cuff, it's on the cuff this week. It's pretty much the same thing, but we finally have, we had time to prepare, so this time we don't look like utter fools.
Should I reveal a little behind the scenes that we actually didn't prepare a whole lot at this point? We kind of had this last minute, not last minute,
yeah, but when you have at least like 5 minutes to research and go through your own list, you know that changes everything.
Okay, that's true. That's right. So we did that. I will say I did this morning. So I did it for
yeah, me too. I made mine like 30 minutes before the show, but I had mine mulling over my mind, for a while.
All right, give me your first one. What's your first choice?
All right, so they're not in order.
And we don't know each other, by the way. We don't know each other, so
we don't know
each other.
No. I'll start off with probably the most obvious choice on this list. I would go with Gary Oldman. I feel like he could play anyone, any type of villain. He could be your Solomon Lane, even Henry Cavill, because he could be your PSH type character. He could be your friggin' what's his face in what's that movie? Jesus, Tony Scott. True Romance. Like
True Romance.
He could be. He can do any type of villain. So
that's true.
Yeah,
I'll say one of my first choices is Gary Oldman. Surprisingly, really? It was Gary Oldman. I love Gary Oldman.
And I was so sure that we were gonna have the same one. That's not even the one that I think that we have on here.
I agree. I think he's getting a little older. He's like in his 60s now, but I think he can still be the physical force he could be if necessary. But he's definitely got a lot of the intelligence factor as well. I kind of think back to his days in Air Force One. Against Harrison Ford, he definitely has the mean streak in him, and I could see him in that kind of action sequence role. And I haven't seen like that too much from him more recently. I've seen him more as like Jim Gordon and
right.
a little bit not. I don't want to say softer because Jim Gordon's not a soft role, but
yeah,
it's
no, he's playing more into his type, but I want him to go more with flair or something, almost like not really Fifth Element, but that like almost like Fifth Element or True Romance, or go out there, like
get out and go. Yeah. I can
Go
see even
big.
something more like State of Grace, even maybe something like that, like where he's just like a wild man, kind of a off the
Haven't
cuff.
seen that one.
I haven't seen it with Ed Harris.
Mm.
It's a great film, great movie. Well, if you watch
Of
Harris,
course, it's Ed Harris. Of course. If it's a movie I haven't heard of or haven't seen,
you should
pretty
actually
much
watch it
because of Ed Harris.
You should really watch it. It's really good. Like all jokes.
What's the name? Say again.
State of Grace. State of Grace.
State of Grace. I'll write that down.
So, but yeah, I do like Gary Oldman as a choice. So, both at Gary Oldman, I guess you can go with your next one then.
My next one is someone who I don't think has ever played a villain, at least not in live action, and I'd like to see Brad Pitt. I want to see Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt come together again.
Okay.
They're pretty much the same age. They both look 20 years younger. I feel like there's an awesome showdown somewhere in there.
I like that. I do like that, Brad. Wow. He played not necessarily a villain, but 12 Monkeys. He was
that's not a villain. The only villain I think he's played was in the animated movie where he was the
right, Superman type character.
Yeah, exactly.
I forget what it is. Megamind. Yeah.
Megamind. That's the one.
Okay, yeah, I like where you're going with that though, because it kind of seems like they're two of the old like pinup boys from the 80s and 90s, but they get to go at each other this way in different ways. Older men. I kind of like that idea. I'm interested to see if he can pull it off. I mean, he definitely can pull it off. I think he has enough in him that he can make it work. Although it is tough, he's very charming. He's a very charming.
He is, but I almost don't want him as a villain. I want him as an anti-hero. Sort of, you're kind of like rooting for him. It's almost like what Henry Cavill did, but he was more of a strict. I just love Cavill's interpretation of the character. Is just, but I feel like he could go even further and make us fall in love with him. Sort of.
Okay. I feel like that. All right, I'll pick one out. Here's one of my favorite ones. I think I want to try. Russell Crowe.
Yeah. Okay. I almost went there.
Big Russell Crowe. I mean, you showed me that trailer of him being a little unhinged. I forget what the heck the film is called.
Yeah.
It is Unhinged. Okay. And I want to see him be that way. I want to see him just he's lost touch with the reality. He's almost like a supervillain. Maybe he worked for he was a spy at one point, but he's been long and gone. I actually could see him still being like big, heavy, sweaty Crowe at this point. Just like being in charge of a lot of different things and really bring Tom Cruise down to his knees and a physical fight kind of thing. I just love kind of almost like the nice guys, except for more more villainous with it.
Some unhinged mixed with the nice guys.
Right, exactly. And then he has the gunplay and he kind of got the attitude like this, I'm tired of this shit kind of thing, and that's where he gets into it. So I'd love to see Crowe versus Cruise. I think look at that alliteration, Crowe versus Cruise. Crowe versus Cruise. All right, come on now, come on.
I like that one. All
right, who do you got next?
I did have him, and I crossed him off the list, and I switched him out with Tilda Swinton.
Oh wow, okay.
She's I was. You and me talked before about Charlize Theron and how we both want to have her on. She was in the Fast and the Furious. She's already that she pretty much played the villain that she would play. I feel like in MI. Right. Tilda Swinton I feel like she's even more ruthless. She has this cold, stern, weird essence about her. That I love her. She's almost like the female version of Ed Harris. She makes everything better that she's in. She always gives it 110%. And she kind of is built to play a villain. She has played villains.
Oh yeah.
I feel like she could be a very cerebral type of villain.
That
for Cruise
is one that makes me. I think she's definitely a cool choice. She might be a bit too eccentric in a way, but I mean, it depends on how it goes. I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see what
I would play into that eccentricity. That's not a word.
Yeah, it's eccentric.
Is it? Okay.
It is indeed. All right, but I like that. I'm going to actually go. I actually went away from it too. Someone kind of a similar. I don't know. I'll just go ahead and say it. Kate Blanchett.
Okay, well, that is really similar. And when I was like, okay, I even went through a Kate Blanchett because I googled some female villains because I needed some inspiration. She was the first one that popped up for Thor.
Right. Yeah. I love that bit. I love her as hell, and she's also.
Yeah.
But you know what I would take actually inspiration from for her is I don't know if you saw it, the Ocean's 8.
I have seen that.
She was in that as
Yep.
like one of the head villains, villains, you know what I mean? But you use that spy like kind of like that con woman kind of sensibility where she could be like a spy agency kind of thing. I think that'd be really cool. She's smart as a whip. You believe she'd outsmart Tom Cruise's character at least for a little enough for a while. So I think that she'd be great one-on-one like chess playing type of villain with Tom.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Same with Tilda Swinton for me. So we kind of went like the same route there.
I agree with that. All right. Who's your next one?
My next one, I would even go further with the Brad Pitt idea that he almost was an anti-hero. I would have Ken Watanabe, but not as a villain, but as someone who is being coerced to work against Ethan, like someone's holding his family or something. Because Ken Watanabe, I feel like he's not built to play an evil villain, but he could be the antagonist, someone who Hunt fights against because he's being coerced because of something. Because when I think of Watanabe, I immediately go to The Last Samurai and even maybe Inception, but he's never your evil guy. He's always your he has the redeeming quality and he's so likable.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I do like that. Ooh.
So I would have him as the antagonist, and at the end of the movie they work together to bring down the real villain.
Okay. I like that. All right. I'm going to go. This is actually an interesting one for me. It's a twofer. I want a twofer.
Okay.
I wanted a twofer. Okay. I want to have first off like the leader and then like the muscle, so to speak. The leader, I kind of want to say Harry Lennox.
Harry Lennox.
He was in Man of Steel as the general. He's in a lot of
in The Matrix. He was the
yes, exactly.
I can't remember who he was, but
he was the opposite of Lawrence Fishburne, basically. I can't remember his character name there. But he's got he's a great leader type. I don't always see him. He could pull off physical role as needed, but I think he's definitely more of this like the smarmy might not be the right word, but he's got this arrogance to him, a little bit of arrogance.
He does.
Rightfulness to him, and he's like gonna make he's taking over the world for the right reasons. You think he's doing it for the right reason? He totally like villains always think they're doing it for the right reasons a lot of time, but this is like a real like righteous thing, almost like a General Hummel type character,
or Thanos
type character, exactly.
Commander Locke.
Commander Locke. That's what it is. And with Harry Lennox, Iko Uwais from The Raid.
Ooh, that is a cool pair up.
Right?
Wow.
I loved it.
I think that's your winner right there.
I have one more.
Dude, Yuko deserves so much more than he's getting.
Right. I can't quite give him the lead because he's not quite that ready for acting roles as far as that goes. But I want him in there like for the stunt purposes and stuff like that. You can add it, and he's get him a little more into that kind of aspect of it. So you have Harry Lennox as the acting portion of it, and Iko as like the physical threat that has the Tom Cruise to fight down somehow.
Like there's like the only problem I see is that Cruise has to defeat him in single combat. Sorry, you can't act that he's winning.
Well, Tom Cruise will have to have some kind of help. I don't know how yet. Something will happen. So like that. So that's my cool little pairing I had. But I should say that for last. But that's all right. Yeah, you have one more.
I have one more. I have a final one.
This
is you pretty much sure you saw this one coming from a mile away. We are finally getting Cruise versus Cage.
I had it and I crossed it out for exactly the
really?
same reason. I did cross it out. Go ahead. I did have it though. So
I would have Cage as your cowboy type, like lots of flair, sort of overplaying it, but definitely a cowboy hat. He needs to have a cowboy.
Oh, I like that. I should have like almost longish hair again, like better.
Yeah, exactly.
Finally getting the AMA, the Cruise versus Cage. I do like that angle, and that is right to my heart. You know that. So. And all right, my fifth one. Oh, by the way, I should point out in case anybody yells at me, I chose not to use Ed Harris. We were using Ed Harris this week. I went Ed Harris-less myself as well. So my fifth villain is one that'd be a very great cerebral villain for Tom Cruise. Giancarlo Esposito.
Right. You have used him before.
I have. I love him.
I remember your call-in.
I did. I used him for The Crow. I used him
Yeah.
for Top Dollar, The Crow. I love his cerebral side to him. I think he's as great. Like just thinking about him as in Better Call Saul, as like this like mastermind kind of villain, but he's so evil and so piercing. And you see him in The Mandalorian. And I thought, there's so much about him that I like. I think he would be a perfect foil for Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 8 or 9 or whatever we're doing at this point.
He would also fit as if we had to replace. I'm blanking on Solomon Lane's actor.
Yes,
because he has sort of that same. So I feel like he has that quality as well. This
Sean
very
Harris.
cerebral.
Yes.
Sean Harris. He's quiet. He doesn't talk much, but he has that dead, glassy, piercing look. Like he terrifies you.
Exactly. He can scare you without doing a thing.
Yeah.
He just has to look at you and he's going to be a little bit scared. So
I love it.
I think we should add these back to our list sometimes. Maybe like.
Well, that's pretty much what we do. That's off the cuff, but now we're just pre-prepared.
A little bit. Yeah, we can do that once in a while. I guess. If we can't get fine and off the cuff, we'll do it on the cuff somehow. It's a good idea. So, because it's fun. Hopefully you guys have fun too. I'd love to say it now. We'll be watching the chat, hopefully. See if anybody in the chat comes up with anybody better or worse, or maybe do they choose Team PSH here or Team Cavill? See who won the choices there. It's got to be PSH this week, right? Because PSH should have won last week.
Like before you condemn me because Ben and Drew did, I'm pretty sure they didn't watch my arguments for that. Like I will completely admit that. Well, I wouldn't admit that I'm wrong, but I will be okay with their choice for going PSH. But after you hear my reasoning, though, just go and listen to why I think that Cavill beats over PSH. It's not because of the actor. It's not because PSH is because Cavill is a better actor than PSH. No, I'm talking about why he's the better villain. I've said my piece.
I listened. I was there. I don't agree. That's okay. All right, guys, let's get into the next part of the show here. We're going to go with first the snap judgment, of course. And so we're going to have to figure out which one we think. I mean, I was dead wrong last week, again, because Jari stuck a knife in my back. So I'm almost scared to do it this week. But in a way, it's a little easier for me because Mission Impossible 3 was my favorite. And so I was definitely going to have a bias. This week is definitely some I'm not quite as definitive on. But if I had to make a snap judgment, I'd go with Fallout.
I'm going with Fallout as well.
Okay.
Going with Fallout. I feel like it has momentum.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of momentum. It did beat my favorite, so I almost want the favorite. If you're going to lose to somebody, you might as well lose to the one who wins it all, right? That and another thing is, well, it's interesting that it's the two Macquarie films that we're talking about the best because it's the one film sequence that has or film series that has gotten better each number according to most fans.
Yeah,
most fans. I will admit that Mission Impossible 3 is not as universally loved as these Macquarie films. So I know I'm a little bit in the minority there, but I got Ben and Drew on my side, so I'll take it. But anyway, why don't we get into our categories? I guess if we had 5 categories. They are the same 5 categories we've had for the past two times, with one exception. The current ones we're going to do that are the same are going to be the better opening sequence, because Mission Impossible always has great opening sequences. The better ultimate stunt, the dreaded better villain category that we're talking about. The better mission, which had the better overall mission, or you want to take short missions involved. It's up to either one of us to do. And instead of better crew, because really the crews are pretty close to identical.
Dude, do you realize that we're switching out better crew with better crews?
Better crew. I didn't realize that. That's awesome. We're doing a better crews. The crew was identical. And it's kind of funny too, because we're arguing, we're taking out better crew because they're identical. And yet here we are saying the better crew performance, and they're kind of identical to a degree, but they're not really, not entirely. We just want to see which Ethan Hunt we like better. Maybe not even what Ethan Hunt is, the same character, but maybe Ethan Hunt in that movie, if that makes sense to everybody. So hopefully everybody else understands that. And without further ado, we'll go into better opening. I'll take the lead on that if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
We have better opening sequence. You have 2 different things you got going on. You got the Fallout. It depends on what you call the opening, but there's that dream sequence in the opening, which has him bringing back Julia into the fold in a way. He's marrying Julia's a dream sequence that goes wrong and everything burns. And then it goes into this little stuff where they have to try to get the plutonium back, and they fail to get this plutonium back. Tom Cruise chooses to save Luther Ving Rhames' character rather than getting the plutonium, and ends up sparking the whole rest of the film, really. Versus Rogue Nation, you have this great stunt sequence where it actually is detached from the film pretty much. It's not really part of anything else. It's just a great moment where Tom Cruise has to jump on a plane and do a great stunt where he's actually literally hanging off the plane.
Yeah.
And he's really doing it.
It's really him. It's really him, dude.
The funny part is, I think I argued against this last time, and I've argued against it before because of the detachment of it, because like the whole thing of the cinematic value of it. But for the same reason, I think that's why I'm picking it this week. I think I'm picking Rogue Nation because I love the fact that it's first of all, it's a great humor opening. Like with the whole opening the door sequence, and they try to Benji, not that door, and you go, oh, the other door, and he gets it open, he flips through, like it's like almost an action comedy, so it sets up this totally different world that it had been before, really. Well, not totally different, but it increased like Benji's part of it, everything else. But also the reason why I loved it so much is you don't get a better like introduction to Ethan Hunt, I don't think, in any other film. Except for like all of a sudden, like they're talking about doing this song with this. All of a sudden, what do you see? He's just running over the the fields, getting to the plane. That's your introduction to Ethan Hunt in this film. He's running, and he's going to try to save the day by basically tackling a goddamn plane. And it's so super real. I just love I do love the opening. I think I love it a little more than Rogue Nation or than Fallout.
Yeah, it's. And I'm completely switching my choice. I would usually like not switching. I mean switching because what you said. I think like Fallout started with a very different intro, right? Like you said, like bringing Julia back, Solomon Lane marrying them getting decimated by the nuclear blast. This from the very start gave us a different start to them with different feel. You sort of felt like there was more. Exactly like you said, there is no attachment to the story on the plane stand. Although I love it, there's a lot of like Benji humor, Cruise humor. It's all there.
Even Jeremy Renner
Fallout
too, for that matter.
Right, exactly. He's there as well. He's in the control room, I think.
Yep.
And but Fallout, you could tell from the start this is going to be a bit more different. There's different heart to the story because okay, I'll leave that for the better Cruise argument. But for that reason, because it's a different, slower start. Because there's stuff coming. There's action coming. They're going to wreck shit and he's going to do all these stunts anyway. I kind of like this sort of slower intro.
Okay.
And I'm not including the plutonium heist in there. Although that could be argued is a slower start to the plane stunt anyway.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so you're going to go Fallout then.
I'm going Fallout.
Okay, fair enough. All right, we'll get into category number 2 there. From better crew to better cruise. Why don't you start this?
Better crew, better cruise. Going once, going twice.
Bada, swing, bada.
All right, I'll take this one. I almost got into this, so I'll say the reason they brought back Julia. Anyway, totally lost my train of thought. What I wanted to say was, if we had to pick the best Cruise performance out of all of the Mission Impossible movies, I would go immediately Mission Impossible 3. I feel like he's all in that. You're going Mission Impossible 3. Now you're going Mission Impossible 3. Yeah, but hear me out. And I'm picking Fallout for this category as well because of the reason they brought back Julia. They brought back the Cruise that was in Mission Impossible 3. He's been awesome in Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, but he really didn't have that. Like, Julie is the only woman in his life who's had that, okay, you could argue Thandie Newton, but she was kind of forgettable. He felt like he was falling in love with her, but I don't know. They kind of got rid of her at the other movies. So the comeback of Michelle Monaghan and the love triangle with that eventually became almost a love triangle with Rebecca Ferguson. Not really, because Michelle Monaghan she had another man
married him.
But that whole arc and how they tied it together. I feel like Cruise, when he stepped out of the action, that's where we see him as the actor Cruise, not the action star Cruise. So because of Michelle Monaghan and because of the tie-in to Mission Impossible 3, I'm giving this to Fallout.
Interesting that you're saying Michelle. Like you keep bringing up Michelle Monaghan.
Yeah,
like,
I feel like she's the heart that ties the sort of grounds Cruise.
Okay. Well, I will say I did love the Rogue Nation cruise in terms of, I feel like it was the more, I want to say vulnerable, but not in a personal way. Not like Mission Impossible 3, he was obviously the most vulnerable, but he was a very vulnerable. He seemed like he wasn't as confident this time. I mean, it's hard to say not as confident. There's moments in here where, like, for example, when they had had to hold his breath for 7 minutes, and Simon Pegg's like, no problem. And he's like, what? What? Yeah, no problem. And you see him getting a little vulnerable about that. He seems a little bit older. He seems like it's the first time he really kind of felt like he was a little bit older than he was. Even though Ghost Protocol wasn't that much earlier, it just felt that little step forward. So I did like this version of Hunt better when I was aging, not quite the superhero that he had been, possibly, even though he really is. He's doing more now than he did before. Yeah. But the character is a little bit built that way. But at the same time, I actually agree with everything you say about Fallout with that, because I love the vulnerability and the personal stakes. And that's exactly what it is. My favorite reason I love Mission Impossible 3 is the personal stakes involved. Mm-hmm. And this is it's probably the second biggest personal stake movie. You bring Julia back. You do have him fall for Ferguson at the end, and it's like Rebecca Ferguson becomes the woman that he can be with because she lives that life with him, so he can actually stay with her possibly. But Michelle, it's never but this whole, like, you don't have to kill Michelle Monaghan to get it, which is not that kind of sequence where usually you have to kill off the way for the character. You didn't have to. They actually still loved each other. You can tell they still loved each other. They still respected each other, and like it was one of those situations where, like, if life had happened in a different way, they would have been together. But life didn't. So
I'm tearing up here.
Right?
You're like, your narration's like, I don't know. You're hitting me right in the feels.
That's what I do. That's what I'm here for. But it's true. That's why I do love that Tom Cruise shows that side of him, and he just seems much more determined. He seems like the Ethan Hunt he's always been meant to be in a way. Mm-hmm. So and I hope that continues. I like to see much more of that. Yeah. Hopefully we'll see, especially with Rebecca Ferguson.
She's going to take over her, like, the Michelle Monaghan sort of heart.
Although in a way, and maybe Michelle Monaghan has had her perfect exit now. Maybe that's the last time we ever need to see her. Mm-hmm. But part of me wants to see them have a connection at some point. Not like a love connection, but like just still like be in each other's lives occasionally. Maybe when the series ends, he still like sends her a Christmas card or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know, something to have. I just like that it's a very unique way to do it. That she's still there, she's still in his life. But yeah, so either I'm getting too much into it at the same time to go for a certain category. Better Cruise, it's Fallout for me as well. Mm-hmm. So I'll go with both of those. All right. So we're gonna move on to Better Ultimate Stunt.
Yes, sir.
This one we got probably the airplane sequence, still probably the best stunt, Rogue Nation, although the holding your breath sequence is also right up there. Versus the Halo jump in Mission Impossible Fallout, or also on the helicopter sequence at the end.
The helicopter stuff, yeah.
The Halo jump is almost near perfect. I did talk to my brother about this at one point. The one thing that does ruin the Halo jump sequence, and it's true, you mentioned this and it's true, is that they had, for some reason, they had these like CGI clouds put in.
Yeah, the thunderstorm, it wasn't necessary.
It wasn't necessary at all. Like the sequence is cool enough without it.
Exactly.
And the banter between Cruise and Cavill, it was great. It so established the two characters for what they were, and the idea that you didn't need to add any more for some reason. So it's one of the few times that McQuarrie probably slipped up a little bit, and that it just wasn't necessary. But I combine that with the helicopter sequence at the end. Mm-hmm. Those two ultimate stunts versus the Rogue Nation's airplane, which is great. The breathing one, unfortunately, it's the funny thing is he held his breath for a long time, but they didn't cut it so that it mattered. Like didn't need to. No. So it's like, well, why'd you even bother then at this point, Tom? You don't even need to do it, Tom.
No, I'm gonna do it for 7 minutes. I need to. Christopher, listen to me. I need to hold my breath for 7 minutes. If I don't do this, I'm out of the movie. I'm out.
exactly what it was. Chris like, fine, fuck it, turn it on, let's go.
Fuck it, let him
Fuck
go.
it.
Fuck it. Sign your waiver. Fuck it.
I always
go.
feel like it's Chris McQuarrie a little bit at that point. It's like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back when they have the Gus Van Sant doing
right. Goodwill Hunting too.
Good Hunting too. That's a Good Hunting too. He's like, man, I'm busy. Whatever. Of course, like at that point, it's like, fuck it, just do what you're gonna do. So, but because that is not as cool considerably compared to the stuff in Fallout, I think I have to give this to Fallout also.
Okay. There was one stunt you didn't mention.
Go ahead. Okay.
In Rogue Nation, and the one I'm picking is the motorcycle chase on the freeway. And we've talked about it. We've gone back and forth if the stunt should complement the movie or it just should be an awesome crew stunt.
Right.
So for this one, when I try to think of, hold on, I'll just mute my other earphones because I'm hearing myself. The motorcycle chase really ties into the story, and it has me, in a weird way, it has me fearing for Cruz's life the most, because you can tell that that's a high-speed chase, and that ties into the story perfectly, because Cruz set up the motorcycle stuff and how he's so good at it in Mission Impossible 2. Right. He also wrote. Oh no, I think that those are the two times that he wrote the motorcycle, right? No, in Fallout as well.
He didn't Fallout.
Brought it back in Fallout.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually went like in the reverse flow of traffic.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but in Rogue Nation in the hills, that chase is freaking like that has me most pumped out of all of the stunt scenes, which is weird. That's and not just because of the stunt, but because of the stakes and what is happening. And how Rebecca Ferguson finally, like, she steps in front of him, just crashes it.
Yeah, that's true.
So that whole sequence has me picking Rogue Nation.
I honestly, to be completely honest, when it comes to this, either one wins. I mean, they're both awesome. Both these films have awesome stunts. So, really, it's kind of a flip of the coin for me, to be honest with you. But okay, now let's get back into this dreaded category. Right. Take villains and go with it. It's not as heated this week, but go ahead and take your villains.
Right. So Fallout.
Motherfucker.
I just wrote one word: Cavill.
That's it. The worst part about this week for me, absolute worst part about this week for me, is that after you broke my heart with this one with Cavill beating PSH, I gotta actually agree with you and pick fucking Cavill this week. I think that's the worst part about the whole thing. I actually do like Henry Cavill and Mission Impossible Fallout. I love Cavill. I love Cavill and Lane together. I think it's a great villain pairing. They just don't compare. That's all. But otherwise, like as far as that goes, you got a Cavill and Lane versus Lane and Attlee, the British guy, the British who were in Nation. MI6, yes. Are with at least with the Prime Minister and everything else, and the Secretary. I think he's Secretary. But Attlee's not a great character. He's a shit weasel, good shit weasel, but he's not as intimidating. You have the fear of Lane, the fear, like that kind of boogeyman thing about Lane, and you have the cocked fists of Cavill. You know, physically intimidating as all hell. And,
but Cavill is really freaking charming as well. He has those sort of charming moments where he's, he gives you a wink and smile at places. So. Yes,
indeed, he does. So, I gotta say that I can't see how, because Lane is kind of cancels each other's out, and Lane is probably actually better in Rogue Nation than he is in Fallout. But
absolutely.
But even if you do that, Cavill is so much better than Attlee is. Not even a heartbeat. I barely remember Attlee. I had to look up his name. Like, what's that guy's name? Oh yeah, Attlee. Oh yeah, whatever. So in this case, I have to go with Fallout, and you just said one word, Cavill. So God damn it, Cavill.
I gotta ask. Let's ask for the audience's help here. Me and Paul, we had I think we argued for 20 minutes. Who is actually in charge in Fallout? And let's not say what our arguments were. Just what do you guys think? Is it Henry Cavill or is it Solomon, like John Lark or Solomon Lane? Who is the number one? Who is the number two? What feels like? Which of these feels like is in command, and which is the lieutenant sort of? So
we're not going to talk about it.
I feel like we're going to get into it. I just want to hear like what people think just off the snap judgment.
Well, should we say what our thoughts were? At least
I don't think we should.
At all? Okay,
Let's
go the
let
whole
them,
episode.
say right now, and then at the end of the show, we'll say which we argued for.
Well, let's go to we'll go do mission first, and then before we reveal the ending, we'll talk about it. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Exactly.
whether you think Lane is in charge overall, or if Cavill
John Lark.
Lark is in charge, August Walker / Lark is in charge. Okay,
Mhm.
let's move on to mission then. Better mission overall. You can. I'll start with this one. That's right. So mission basically have. To me, this was almost like a no-brainer to me because to me, I'm giving this one to Fallout. I'll tell you right away because this is almost, despite every other mission possible we've talked about, this is actually almost like a mission that it's almost a 2-movie mission. They're almost the same mission to a degree.
Right.
It's like part 2 of the same mission. It's about weeding out the syndicate, stopping the syndicate's plots. And they kind of stopped it a little bit in Rogue Nation, but not entirely. And then, excuse me, then this is all about having to finish the job, so to speak, getting rid of all of the apostles and all of the Walker and Lanes and everything else. So, but the best part about this is, while the syndicate itself, by itself, is a great storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Fallout, you have the syndicate and the CIA mole, and you bring in the personal stake that Julia is.
The apostles are part of the syndicate, right? They are
That's
the
right.
apostles. I feel like they refer to them as the apostles, as another organization, but it feels like the syndicate consists of the apostles. Right?
I kind of felt like the apostles was Cavill's fellow
He's
men
sort of
within
sub-branch.
Right, like he was in charge of the apostles. Maybe the apostles in the CIA. Maybe his fellow traitors and the inside positions or whatever, top ranked kind of people or whatever, top people they counted on. But so I would go with Fallout because of that exact thing, because you have the same syndicate, but then you add on the CIA, you add on the personal stakes of Michelle Monaghan, Julia. So I think you got to go with Fallout on this one as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you approach this as like a whole, like the entire, like the overall story arc. I again broke it down into these mini missions that I like to do. And I pitched it against the computer chip in the cooler, like the underwater sequence where he has this awesome arm sleeve that shows how much oxygen he has left. And I do like the fact that it's weird to say that I like it, but he fails to save himself. He completes the mission, but he would essentially be dead without Rebecca Ferguson.
For the second time in the series.
Right,
dead.
Exactly. And in Fallout, I'm going back to that awesome mission, that awesome sequence when he's saving Lane out. Well, he's saving Lane out when he's breaking Lane out again.
Right.
Like not again, but breaking him out. It has some awesome Dark Knight vibes. Some Christopher Nolan vibes.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it's one of those missions. Also, they show how he would go into that mission from they have this sort of what would happen if Cruz went in, guns blazing and killing the police officers that were involved. Right. I sort of like that. We see like a glimpse of this ruthless Cruz for a second when he's just like gunning down that guard.
Can I interject something real quick? Real quick that I forgot about it? It almost goes back to villain in a way, but it happens to be the reason why this. We didn't talk about it last week, or I don't think we talked about it much last week, but I want to mention it again. Vanessa Kirby, as part of this whole sequence too, is awesome in this movie. And it's a big part of this whole sequence. She plans the whole thing out with her brother and with Cruz, obviously. So she's a good part of the villain. She actually takes villain over even more to Fallout. And as part of this mission, I also like that as well. I just couldn't not mention her.
Yeah, we should mention her. Yeah, we didn't talk about her at all. But the way he executes the mission, it sort of feels like he's, winging it, is like crashing the cars. He's like messing up, the mission sort of so the guards wouldn't get killed. It feels like it's a down and dirty mission. But the way he completes it, you find out that everything, the bike chase around the square, the way he's he falls off the bike, which probably wasn't planned, and he falls into the sewer hole and falls right into the speedboat. Boom, they get away. It's like, oh, wow, that was... I completely didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that's great.
So I am going with Fallout as well.
All right. Wow. Okay, so we're done then, I guess. So we actually finished out our saga here. So let's tell the chat real quickly. Going back to the villain sequence, I will say that Why don't you go ahead and give yours first?
I don't want to get into because I feel like we'll be here for hours. But I feel like Henry Cavill as John Lark, as whatever Walker, is in charge and has been in charge over Solomon Lane. When Solomon Lane got, he got busted, the Apostles, the Syndicate kept on going without him. Cavill was actually in charge, and it feels like he was in charge before. We don't know about that, but he is the number one villain when it comes to billing. But that's not what we're arguing. We're arguing if he was actually the mastermind behind everything.
We're trying to figure out who's in charge. Is Solomon Lane in charge of Lark, or is Lark in charge of Solomon Lane? And I was on the other side. It's definitely Solomon Lane. First of all, you got to just look at the villains in general. You say that Solomon Lane is the mastermind and Henry Cavill is the hammer. Henry Cavill is the physical guy who's getting shit done, but Solomon Lane is the one that's in charge of a lot of things. That's my argument. And we can get into the whole rest of it. Actually, we did get into it for quite a while. I do think so. I'm interested to see what the chat has to say about that, but that's what we're saying now. I still say Solomon Lane was in charge.
Yeah, I get that.
Walker took over while Lane was caught, but at the end of the day, it's still Solomon Lane's plan, and that's what I'm saying. So, all right. Without further ado, I guess we get to the ending here and see which one won. This is actually a lot less close than I thought it was going to be, and Mission Impossible 3 was a lot closer. The winner of today by a score of 8-2.
Wow.
Mission Impossible Fallout. That's best Mission Impossible film.
There we go. We were correct about our snap judgment.
We were correct about that. I did think it was going to be closer. I'm not unhappy with Mission Impossible Fallout winning the tournament. It's probably my second favorite film of the series. My 3 versus Fallout would have been my finale for me. But at the end of the day, Fallout did win over 3. It was fair and square, even though it was a little bit clear case of insanity. But
there's some insanity is always involved in things like this. You need some insanity.
We're all a little insane, aren't we? But yeah, so Fallout winning. What do you think of that? What did the chat think of that? Did the right film win? Did the right film win the tournament? Is anybody got to sit here and argue that we were lackadaisical since we didn't put Mission Impossible 1 or Mission Impossible 2 in there? Should one of those have won? If you want to do that, you can talk about that on your own show if you'd like. I would come on and talk about it. I would come and talk about Dougray Scott, though, as a Hunt. I do like that.
Don't forget John Voight.
That's your John Voight one.
Actually an awesome villain.
He is actually an awesome villain. I got to tell you, as much as we decried it and said, I still like Mission Impossible 1, and I can watch Mission Impossible 2. It's not like unwatchable. It was easy to tell that they were not going to be. They would have been the easy outs of the tournament pretty much at that point. But that's it. That's all we're doing today. It's a short episode.
It unveils a cool pattern that you also mentioned at the beginning of the show. It shows that the Mission Impossible movies are progressing as they go. If
2 was in front of 1, it would be definitely progressing all the way up. Anyway, and I would put 3 last, but that's a different story too. Anyway, though, but that's all for today, folks. Where can the folks find you, Team Cavill?
You can find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Richard Eric with a K Jarvie, and you can find me here weekly talking with Paul DiNuzio. Hopefully, not arguing as much as we did today. So tune in for next week. We will have an awesome show for you. I'll let you tease that one, Paul.
All right, yeah, we're gonna go live. We do these live shows every once in a while. Next Sunday night at 9 Pacific. That's 12 a.m. Eastern. We're gonna go live class action with special guest Brandon Hanna. It's gonna be a good friend of the show, good friend of the action industry's brand. He is not the Hitman. The Hitman's very much our enemy. We hate the Hitman right now. He's a big heel in the Schmodown. But it's not a Schmodown show, so we're going to be friends on this show. And we're going to be discussing 2 of my favorite franchises and some of his as well. And I believe some of yours as well. We're going to take J.J. Abrams versus J.J. Abrams, Star Trek 2009 versus Star Wars The Force Awakens. I love the idea.
Really cool movies, and I love both of them. I'm not a Trekkie at all. Like my intro to Star Trek were the J.J. Abrams movies.
Right.
So it's gonna be an awesome show either way.
Definitely gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk about both of them with Brandon, because Brandon's a very knowledgeable person as well.
Mhm.
He loves Star Trek, loves Star Wars as well. Big Intergeekdom player for the Schmoedowns. That makes a lot of sense. So, hope you guys like that. You can find me at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me on Class Action every week with my good friend Richard Eric Jarvie. Actually, he'll be back to be my good friend next week. Right now, he's still a little bit of my bitter enemy, a little bit longer.
I'm your Cowell to your hunt.
That's right. You can find Chill. You can find me on Chilled Action, the Called Action podcast for Schmoedown Talk. We're interviewing Andres Gallego this week, and then our next week is our 50th episode and our 1-year anniversary. We're going to reunite Team Action and have Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy on. That should be a lot of fun as well. And finally, opening PLD projects. Right now, I'm really only doing my show out V. I'm doing that as sporadically. I've just been tied up in a lot of other things. I am working on getting the Harris-tons going. We're talking about all the Ed Harris movies, and we'll get there soon, waiting for a few thumbnails and some free time to actually record. It's going to be a pre-recorded type of thing. So you can find me there. Hit thumbs
Live
up.
hang.
Like-
Live hang, dude.
Did you see the live hang?
I was there.
Live hang.
Oh,
I should
man.
mention this. That's true. Live
Yeah.
hang. Those are not scheduled usually too much in advance. When I have a night off and I'm not doing a whole lot, sometimes I will have a few drinks, get some friends together. And well, the last one we talked about was definitely not safe for work, not safe for kids. It's actually
I was at work.
I actually pulled that and made it private, but you never know what's going to happen on a live hang because anything could happen at any time. So hit that like for PLD projects, hit that like and subscribe. Maybe you'll be lucky enough to see that at some point too. But here
You're talking about food and eating.
That's what
Not
it
food.
Was.
You're just eating.
Gold medal, silver medals, Olympic medals, all sorts of things. It was a lot of fun. But here, hit the like and subscribe as well. Ben Bateman and Drew have a lot of great shows on here. They have Action Industries, does Action Unfiltered. They do Film Food, where they talk about a food from a movie, especially that's in a scene. Like, for example, they did like the Cubano from Chef. They talk about the film. It's great. It's good stuff. They show you how they make it. It's a lot of good stuff. And they have the Action Guys every Sunday. I believe tomorrow's show. I actually don't know if they announced it. So I'm not going to say anything because I don't know if they announced it or not. They have guests, usually some fun guests, and that goes on from there. But that's it for now. Hit that like, subscribe, hit a comment. That actually helps us out. So if you can do that, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next week, court is adjourned.